You won't believe what Judge Faith finally revealed. The life of Judge Faith, a woman known for her strength and fairness in the courtroom, held a secret that had remained hidden for years. To the outside world, her life seemed perfect, accomplished, respected, and filled with what appeared to be a loving marriage. However, behind the scenes, her seemingly ideal life was unraveling in ways no one could have expected. While she built her career on principles of justice and integrity, her personal life told a very different story, one filled with silent heartbreak, difficult decisions, and a betrayal that turned her world upside down. Faith once thought she had found her soulmate. Their meeting felt like fate, a moment where everything aligned perfectly. They laughed together, dreamed together, and supported each other's goals. Their early days were full of joy, adventure, and plans for a future brimming with hope. She believed she had found someone who saw her for more than just her successful career, someone who genuinely valued her as a partner. In those moments, life felt effortless and love felt secure. But sometimes, what appears flawless from afar is just an illusion. Slowly, cracks began to form. The long, heartfelt conversations faded into silence. Brief messages became colder, and his late nights at work grew more frequent. Faith wanted to believe his excuses, attributing the changes to stress or the busyness of life. Yet deep down, she sensed something was shifting. The love that once felt unshakable began to dissolve into uncertainty. Despite her doubts, she held on, pouring herself into her career and trying to mend the fractures at home. She questioned herself endlessly. Was she neglecting her marriage? Had she changed? Was her ambition coming at a cost? These thoughts haunted her. Yet, this wasn't just a story of two people drifting apart. It was about one woman desperately clinging to a love that was slipping through her fingers. The most heartbreaking part was that she didn't even realize how far things had deteriorated. While she devoted herself to saving their relationship, the truth of his betrayal remained hidden. The warmth of their home turned cold. The man who once celebrated her successes now seemed detached and indifferent. She kept a brave face in public, continuing to shine in her professional life, but behind closed doors, she was breaking. Then came the moment that changed everything, a small discovery. Perhaps it was a text, a lie, or an inconsistency that couldn't be ignored. It was a seemingly minor revelation, but it carried the weight of a devastating truth. This wasn't just emotional distance. It was a betrayal that shattered the foundation of their relationship. Trust, the very thing that held them together, was gone. Faith's heart sank as she realized the man she thought she knew wasn't who she believed him to be. The illusion had crumbled. That night, she lay awake, replaying every detail of their relationship, searching for signs she might have missed. The truth was undeniable. She had been fighting for a love that may have already been lost long ago. Despite her pain, she kept everything bottled up, showing up to work with her usual grace while drowning in anguish behind the scenes. Her home no longer felt like a sanctuary. It felt like a place of loneliness and disconnection. Even after uncovering the betrayal, Faith still held on to hope. Memories of their happiest moments clouded her judgment, making it hard to let go. She convinced herself that honest communication might save their relationship. Finally, she confronted him, asking the question that had been eating away at her: what happened to us? His response was a mix of excuses, work stress, pressure, and vague explanations that felt hollow. His inability to meet her gaze spoke louder than his words. In that moment, Faith realized the depth of their disconnect. It was a turning point. For years, she had questioned herself, but now she saw things clearly. The love she had been fighting for wasn't real anymore. It was a memory, a habit, a fear of letting go. Despite the betrayal, she didn't lash out in anger. Instead, she made the hardest decision of all: to stop trying. The relationship had become a one-sided effort, and she couldn't continue carrying the weight alone. After that night, everything changed. The silence between them grew unbearable, and the emotional distance solidified into a wall. Faith began to detach herself, piece by piece. She no longer sought comfort from him. Instead, she turned inward, finding clarity in the stillness. For the first time, she stopped blaming herself. She had given everything she could, but it wasn't enough for someone who had already checked out of the relationship. The days that followed were excruciating. Every corner of her home reminded her of what they once had. Yet, in the midst of her heartbreak, Faith began to rediscover herself. She started reconnecting with old friends, revisiting forgotten dreams, and finding joy in small, personal moments. Slowly, she allowed herself to heal. She hadn't told anyone about her broken marriage, fearing judgment and pity. But one day, she opened up to a close friend, sharing her pain honestly. To her surprise, her friend didn't judge her. Instead, she listened with compassion, offering the support Faith hadn't realized she needed. This moment of vulnerability marked a turning point. Faith began to share her story more openly, and in doing so, she inspired others. Women who felt trapped in their own struggles reached out to her, finding courage in her journey. She hadn't set out to be a symbol of strength, but her authenticity resonated deeply. She wasn't perfect or unbreakable, but she was real, and that made all the difference. As the weeks turned into months, Faith rebuilt her life. She poured herself into her career, rekindling her passion for her work. Therapy became a space where she could process her grief and gain a deeper understanding of herself. The journey wasn't easy, but with each step, she grew stronger and more confident. She realized that her worth didn't depend on anyone else's love or approval. The most important relationship she had was with herself. Faith embraced the idea of living life on her own terms. She rekindled hobbies, spent time with loved ones, and rediscovered her laughter. The guilt and self-doubt that had weighed her down began to fade. She stopped questioning her decisions and started trusting her instincts. While the pain of her past would always be a part of her story, it no longer defined her. Over time, Faith understood that healing wasn't about forgetting. It was about learning to carry the past without letting it control the future. She had faced betrayal, heartbreak, and loss, but she had also found her strength and resilience. For the first time in a long while, she felt free. Her journey was far from over, but she was ready for whatever lay ahead. Whether in her career, personal life, or relationships, she approached each challenge with newfound clarity and courage. Faith's story is a testament to the power of perseverance and self-discovery. Life is unpredictable, filled with both joy and pain. But as Faith learned, it's not about avoiding the falls, it's about how we rise after them. Through heartbreak, she found herself, emerging stronger and more empowered than ever before. Her future was hers to create, and she was ready to embrace it with open arms.